You're watching New York State Legislative Report with Senator Tom O'Mara. I'm Julia Lokendy. Today, the Senator and I are going to talk about what's going on in the New York State Senate. It's great to be with you, Senator.
How you doing, Julia?
I'm doing good.
Good to be here.
You started with a transition. You started this year with a transition from the Assembly to the Senate. You were elected to the Senate after 3 consecutive terms in the Assembly. Tell us what your overall opinion of the Senate is.
Well, it's been very positive. You know, it's certainly going from the minority to the majority has been a big change. And now that we've gone through the first budget process and did that in, I think, a more organized and timely way, certainly than last year. But you know, my first year in the Assembly, we had an on-time budget. Believe it or not, that was one of the first on-time budgets in over 20 years at that point. And now, my first year in the Senate, we were able to get an on-time budget. I don't know that I had all that much to do with that, but I'll take credit for it where I can. But you know, we worked hard to do that, and being in the majority is a good thing. As far as representing my constituents, having my voice heard and my opinions recognized, you know, not always heeded, but you know, through our conference, I think we've done a great job this year in a very difficult time.
Yeah, you were appointed chairman of the Elections Committee for the Senate, and you're also a member of 9 other committees. Tell us about the work that you do on the committees, starting with election.
Well, with elections, you know, the biggest thing we've done so far in elections is the changing the law on the special elections for the timeliness of it. With the Federal MOVE Act, which is for our military and overseas voters to give the appropriate time for them to respond with their absentee ballots. We lengthened the time from a 40-day window to a 80-day time frame for the special election, which will make us compliant with federal law. And we're seeing that now in the Chris Lee congressional seat up outside of Buffalo, and we got a special election coming up there in the end of May for that. And this is the first application of that law, but it will give appropriate time to get the absentee ballots out to our military overseas and give them enough time to get them back in, so we make sure that their votes are counted, because those are obviously very important votes, those people that are serving our country abroad, in war, or in other capacities around the world. We need to make sure that we give them every opportunity to be included in the process.
Right. What about the other committees that you sit on? What are some work that you've done there?
Well, you know, I'm on 9 committees, and probably if you asked me to list them right now, I'd probably leave 1 or 2 out. But the major ones are environmental conservation, energy, which when I was in the Assembly, I was the ranking Republican on the Energy Committee, and those are 2 very important issues for my district and for this state, with environmental conservation and the Marcellus Shale issues that we're dealing with in the southern tier, which could be a huge economic benefit for our area. But we got to make sure we do it right, that we do it responsibly and safely for our environment, and we're waiting for DEC to get their report done. And then I'm sure we'll see more activity in environmental conservation with regards to that area once the regulations are put into place, and see what we may need to do legislatively to make sure that we get it right, because I think it can be done right with the proper oversight and supervision. But you know, we're letting the experts go through and figure out how to do Marcellus Shale environmentally responsibly, and move from there. On the Energy Committee, an issue that I worked on a lot in the Assembly was the Recharge New York, which was the extension of the Power for Jobs program, and we were able to get that in the budget this year, and it's been held up in the Assembly for several years. And that extends the Power for Jobs, which provides some low-cost power for our manufacturers, mainly manufacturers in my district like Anchor Glass, that employs almost 400 people, and they're the high energy users. Mercury Aircraft in Hammondsport, that they have a lot of good paying jobs, but they use a lot of energy in their manufacturing processes. So it's important that we use this as an economic development tool, and this is going to provide up to 7-year contracts for these companies to rely on a low-cost power source, whereas it's been extended year to year, and they really haven't had the luxury of knowing that whatever capital investments they make, they're going to have time to recoup that because they're going to get low-cost energy for a period of time. I mean, Anchor Glass, when they go through and they redo a furnace for their bottling company, you know, it's a $20 million project that takes a lot of time to recoup for those investments, and those capital improvements make it more efficient, more energy efficient for the company to use the power, but it also helps maintain the future of these industries and provides the good paying jobs. I think Anchor Glass in Chemung County has the highest payroll in the entire county, and so keeping these kind of jobs secure is certainly what is a major focus of mine.
Yeah, retaining the jobs, and they're able to create more jobs that way too.
Yeah, they are, and you know, seeing that get in the budget, because the Assembly Energy Committee had blocked that for years with no real rationale other than holding it up for I don't know what. It was very frustrating for years dealing with that, but having gotten that done, that was a huge success in the budget this year, which, you know, was a very difficult budget year, as everybody knows, but that was one of the high points of the budget.
Yeah, you came into this budget in hard economic times. Tell us what the process was like under a new governor.
Well, I think the Governor Cuomo came out with a firm message that New York has no future as the tax capital of the nation, that we're not going to get ourselves out of the problems we are by increasing taxing and spending in the state that's been out of control for decades. He was strong and firm in the fact that we weren't going to raise taxes, we weren't going to borrow money, and we had to close a $10 billion deficit in the process. And that was a very difficult task to do. And there's a lot of pain that's being shared throughout, particularly in local education and in healthcare. And you know, we're going to have to work through this process throughout the rest of the year, because the cuts we took were drastic, and we got to, you know, keep our eye on the ball, so to speak, so that we make sure that we haven't done something that's going to have really adverse consequences. I mean, there's going to be tough situations, obviously, with the cuts in funding, but we got to make sure that we make adjustments where it's needed as we go forward.
Yeah, this budget, definitely the message was fiscal discipline. Talk about some of the tax issues.
Well, fiscal discipline, there was no new taxes in this budget, which, you know, was unheard of. In the past 2 years, when there was a Democrat majority in the Senate, and all the dysfunction we saw with that and with the coup and everything else, there was over $14 million in new taxes throughout that time, which is the wrong thing to do, particularly in a tough economy where we're trying to create jobs and have the individuals, the entrepreneurs, be able to have some faith in government. You know, we've had a lot of lack of public confidence in recent years in our state government. It's one of my priorities to try to restore that confidence where we can. I think this budget goes a long way in helping restore some of that confidence in the process. You know, one of the as poor of a governor as Governor Patterson was throughout his time in a couple of years, one thing that he did that will remain with us for a long time was figured out the way that he could implement his budget through budget extenders, and the option goes to the legislature. Either you shut down government across the state, or you agree to the governor's extender bill. And Patterson did that in his budget, and Cuomo certainly learned from that and used that as a huge hammer with us in these negotiations. So as tough as Governor Cuomo's budget was, you know, we spent a couple months trying to improve upon that, and did, in a lot of respects, improve upon that with some additional aid to local education that helped out some. Certainly doesn't come close to solving all the cuts that they had, but in the areas of EPIC, the senior prescription drug program in New York, the governor had cut that program out completely, which I never understood why he did that, because, you know, our seniors are certainly a very important constituency, and they're the ones that are on fixed incomes and would be drastically impacted by this. And it was a $34 million program. We were able to restore about $23 million of that dollars in our budget to move forward and help provide some relief there.
This budget also seems to focus on the needs of upstate.
Well, it does, particularly in the area of education and economic development. Again, it's not a great budget for our school districts, but what we ended up with was a great deal better than what the governor initially proposed, that didn't have the cuts in education equitably distributed around the state. And we worked very hard to get more of the money we were able to add back in to our upstate districts, and particularly our lower wealth rural districts that we have. And you know, we still need to encourage, I think, consolidations where it makes sense and where it will work. But in the area of economic development, we made improvements to the Excelsior program, which is somewhat the replacement of the Empire Zone program for economic development, which we had great success with in the southern tier. The Excelsior program still doesn't come close to provide the benefits that the Empire Zone did, and we're going to work to continue to improve that. But we did. We were able to get in real property tax relief in the Excelsior program. We doubled the length of time. You're able to get certain credits from 5 years to 10 years to make it a better program. We still need to do some work on it and get it better. But in these tough economic times, it's difficult to devote the resources necessary to have a real solid program. You know, it was last fall that the Wall Street Journal reported what all these states around the country were doing with their deficits and the trouble they were having, and what states were doing to improve their economies, and how they were making more and more lucrative Empire Zone type programs. And then it concluded by saying, but New York is going the opposite way and retracting the Empire Zone. And that's what's happened, and we need to work very hard to get back, because the government doesn't create jobs, business does, and we need to foster a more friendly business environment so the jobs can be created that we need for our young people to get out of high school, get out of college, and have a job to go to, so they're not heading to the mid-Atlantic states where they've had booms in recent years. We need to make it a good opportunity here in New York to come. We've got great universities. We've got a great university system, and we need to be able to have the state economy to back that up, to provide jobs for these great young people that are coming out of our schools.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you, during the budget process, how did you get input from your constituents?
Well, through my website, through a lot of emails. I mean, thousands of emails, and it's great. And we do our best to respond as timely as we can and get appropriate information and respond to them. But there's certainly a lot of input, mainly through email is the way most people communicate these days. We still get letters, and we get phone calls. The EPIC program I mentioned, AARP put a full court press on EPIC, and they were generating phone calls to their membership and ask a question. This is happening with EPIC. Do you want to talk to your representative? And if they said yes, they clicked a button and it got connected directly to my office here in Albany and in Elmira. And a lot of the people calling in didn't realize that was happening, and they thought we were generating the calls, but AARP was doing it, and just to voice. But they were voicing their concerns on EPIC and the problems with that, and how beneficial that program has been to them over the years. So there was a little bit of confusion in regards to that, but I think we ended up handling it pretty well once we figured out what was going on, and getting 100 phone calls a day on these issues. So it's great to get the feedback and the input from my constituents around the district, because that's what it's all about.
Right. Very quickly, we have under 30 seconds left, but what was the reaction from your constituents about the budget?
By and large, it's been very favorable from the constituents, because they love the fact that we're finally taking action serious on the budget, our out-of-control spending, our out-of-control taxes, where we didn't raise taxes, we didn't borrow new money, we actually cut spending from year to year, and we're starting, I think, with this budget to get ourselves going in the right direction in New York so that we can improve things for the future of all of us.
Great. Thanks so much for being with us, Senator.
Thank you.
For any additional information, omara.nysenate.gov.